Today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about rev matching and engine braking on your motorcycle. This is an essential rider technique that you're going to use to ride more safely, more confidently, and look like a pro. Here's what it looks like when done correctly. And here's what it looks like when done incorrectly. Let's learn how to rev match on a motorcycle, how to use engine braking, and why you should do it. Let's get into it. So why do we want to use rev matching in the first place? Well, when you look at this diagram, you have to realize that everything exists in harmony on a motorcycle. Your engine RPM, your transmission gear speed, and your wheel speed all have to exist in relation to each other when traveling at a fixed mile per hour. If you were to change the transmission gear speed, your engine RPM will have to increase or decrease accordingly. It's just like on a bicycle. If you grab a bigger cog in the back, your legs have to spin faster. But in this case, your legs are actually the cylinder here on this motorcycle. By rev matching on your motorcycle or grabbing a blip of throttle before selecting a gear down, you're helping the engine increase its speed to match the new transmission speed. If you don't do this, you're asking the clutch and the transmission to ultimately take the new load that the engine increase in RPM is giving it. And in extreme cases, if you grab a bunch of gears down and you just let out the clutch and let the bike take up all the burden, you could actually lock up the rear wheel. Whenever you successfully do this, you'll notice that the motorcycle starts to naturally slow down on its own due to engine braking. Engine braking happens because you're creating a vacuum inside of the engine by closing the air intake valve and ultimately causing the engine to slow down and putting load into the bike and slowing that whole motorcycle down. This is a really useful technique to help you overall slow the motorcycle, and some bikes do this pretty dramatically over others. Now that you know why rev matching is important, let me show you how it's done on the bike. There's three primary controls you need to worry about when rev matching on your motorcycle. That is the throttle, the clutch, and the shifter. What's going to happen is a very delicate balancing act between these three is going to occur whenever you want to rev match. Let's say you're going down the road at a constant 40 or 50 miles per hour. You're giving this bike just a little bit of maintenance throttle, maybe an eighth of the way turned. Whenever you want to select a gear down and do it appropriately by rev matching, the first thing you're going to do is pull in the clutch. That's going to make the engine RPMs drop. As those engine RPMs drop, before they reach down to zero, you'll quickly just give a little blip of the throttle. And then at some point in between these two, you're gonna select that gear down. So the whole procedure is gonna go clutch in, blip throttle, select gear down, slowly let out clutch, back on the gas. It happens kind of quickly, and so you need to practice this effectively. So the whole thing is gonna look like this in real time. You're going down the road, you got a little bit of throttle open. That was it, right there. A little bit of throttle open, let off the gas, clutch in, blip it, grab a gear, back on it, let the clutch out smoothly. It sounds a lot more complicated than it is. It's actually a pretty simple procedure, but the most important thing you need to do is get that balancing act right between all three of your limbs. Coasting on the gas, clutch a little in, blip it, grab a gear down, clutch out. If you do it slowly, it's actually worse than if you try to do it quickly. The best thing you can do is try to learn how to do this quickly, because if you go slow, the engine RPMs will drop too much. If you clutch in on a modern motorcycle, in a second or two, you're gonna be at idle basically. So what you wanna do is just like that. So let's get this bike out on the road and teach you guys a little bit more about how to use this technique.
Alrighty folks, pulling away in first gear here. Hopefully you know how to do that if you're watching this video. We're on this Tuono 660 factory today, so you'll notice I can grab a shift up without clutching in, so that's why I'm doing that. I've got a quick shifter up. However, I've disabled the auto blipper down so I can show you guys how this is done. Alright, so as we mentioned in the shop, it's a coordination act between the clutch, the throttle, and the shifter. So what you're going to want to do is, as you're trying to grab a gear down, you'll pull in the clutch, blip the throttle, grab a gear down. Let me show you how that's done right here. Just like that, down into first. Grab into second here, we're cruising, pulling the clutch because we're slowing down over here. And that's the point I want to make, is the first thing you're going to do is pull in that clutch. That's the first action that happens when you're selecting a gear down on your motorcycle, right? You're going to want to pull in that clutch and then activate your blip of the throttle. And to be honest, the timing of selecting the gear down on the actual shifter doesn't really matter all that much. It just has to happen in between you grabbing the clutch in and pulling it out. For demonstration purposes, we'll go up into 4th gear here. If we want to select the gear down, like I said, we're cruising in maintenance throttle, 40 miles an hour. If I want to continue going 40 miles an hour, but in 2nd gear, engine has to speed up a lot more. I got to get a lot more revs going. And you'll notice that I have engine braking happening, right? So that's the next thing I want to show you guys is, if I put it up into 4th gear here, as I approach this stop sign, I'm not going to touch my front brakes, but watch, I grab a gear down, see what's happening in my miles per hour, grab another gear down, and now I'm touching the brakes. So that whole time, I never touch those front brakes, and yet engine braking is slowing me down because I'm creating a vacuum inside of the engine by closing that air intake, and the energy is being put back into it. We'll continue going here, 3rd gear, 4th gear, show you guys this again. Clutch goes in first, throttle hand, then shifter. If I want to go down into 2nd up here, just like that, easy peasy. We're back on the throttle here. That's how it's done, guys. It's pretty simple. So once you learn that coordination between those 3 limbs, that's really what it's going to boil down to. And a great way you can practice is by being at a parking lot, just like this, right? Away from everybody. Put your bike into neutral and don't worry about the shifter itself. What I want you to do is just practice this motion. Whenever a clutch goes in, just blip the throttle. So pretend like you're on the gas here, and then just, that's all you're doing, is just clutch in, blip, clutch out, clutch in, blip, clutch out. Once you got that down, just figure out how to actually actuate this in between this being pulled. So really the only thing that's going to happen is you're just going to select the gear down while you're blipping this throttle, and nothing's going to happen because the clutch is pulled in. That's what you have to remember. Because the clutch is being pulled in, you're controlling how much power is going back to the rear wheel. So show you guys this again. We're in 1st gear here, gonna roll in this parking lot, gonna grab 2nd gear, down into 1st. That's it. That was it right there. But I did want to show you guys what it looks like when you don't do it correctly. So we'll put it up into 2nd gear here, and now I'm just going to grab a gear down into 1st. It didn't really feel that great. I felt the engine taking in all that load. Not a very good feeling. If we put it up into 3rd here, same thing will happen. We're not going very fast, so yeah. See, bike doesn't like you when you do stuff you don't want it to do. So what you want to do is you get the bike into 1st gear, and you can practice in the parking lot. You can see how it feels whenever you do this. You go 2nd gear, 3rd gear, clutch in, clutch in. It doesn't feel quite right. What you want to do is blip that throttle and get the engine speed to match. So go up here into 2nd gear, 3rd gear. It's so much smoother, and you look much more professional on your motorcycle. That's the way you want to do it. Show you guys this a couple more times, then we'll wrap up this video. So let me show you guys this. If I just grab a gear down, see, the engine's taking all that load. It's not liking me, and it's really slowing down a little too aggressively. If you blip the throttle and map the engine speed to it, you'll feel a whole lot better, trust me. And again, at higher RPMs, you really don't want to do that because you run the risk of locking up the rear wheel. 4th gear here will show you guys the bad example of it. 3rd gear, 2nd gear, 1st gear, it's just, it's all out of sorts. You can feel the rear end having to catch up to that speed, versus if we were to engine match, much better result by doing it with the proper technique. Keep in mind, guys, engine braking is going to help you slow down more effectively, right? That's what we all want to do. We want to help our motorcycles operate the way they were designed to operate. And the rider has a lot of input into that. The bike's not going to magically ride itself correctly. You have to make sure that you're riding that motorcycle the way the designers intended for you to ride it, right? So practice that engine braking, practice that rev matching. It's a super important skill, and you'll thank yourself when you can get it right, because you'll look like a much better rider, because you are a better rider. As we approach here, we'll be on the front brake, grab a gear, slight little blip of the throttle, works beautifully for us. We're in the appropriate gear for the speed that we're in. You always want to match that, right? You want to make sure that you're in that right gear. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Leave me a comment down below if you enjoyed what you saw. This Aprilia 200 660 here that was featured in the video is a giveaway motorcycle, so if you want the chance to win, head over to shop.yamanoob.co. Every dollar you spend is an entry to win. It's gonna be a great time. We just fitted a full exhaust onto this thing. It's a fantastic motorcycle. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you learned something today, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
I'm impressed. I think the only thing I can do is just keep watching Yami Noob.